every touch inside the app, right? We can watch a consumer's, journey and their growth. So I think that that's, number one for boosting customer retention is looking at your customer journey roadmap and then identifying the pain points and then solving them one by one by one.
How do you follow up explosive growth with lasting engagement? Welcome to CleverTap Engage, episode 8.
And we're looking at finance apps, and finance apps are having a moment. They're hitting new records. So App Annie, for example, reports app downloads alone totaled a massive 4.6 billion in 2020, outpaced all downloads across all categories by a factor of 2. Sean, time spent in finance apps, because we're interested in retention and engagement, time spent increased by 45% over the previous year, and participation in stock market apps, investment apps through apps such as Acorns grew by a massive 55% globally.
All sounds great, and it is. But it also brings new challenges, massive amounts of competition, huge increases in the cost of customer acquisition, and of course, the need to engage and retain all those millions of new users. My name is John Katsir. Today, we're talking to one of the most impressive marketing experts in fintech.
And my name is Peggy Ann Saltz. And of course, we're here at CleverTap Engage. It's all about finding the best mobile marketers and sharing their secrets with you. So we are chatting today with James Moorhead, the CMO of Acorns. He's the former CMO of Dish Network. He scaled the car insurance startup Metro Mile from 1.5 million in revenue to 100 million in 3 years, John. So we do have a master mobile marketer. He's also been named Adweek Grand Marketer of the Year. And we want to welcome him. Welcome, James.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here with you today and looking forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. James, we want to obviously learn all your top marketing secrets, but we want to start with you first, get a bit of an intro. You're an interesting person. You started as a traditional CPG marketer, Procter & Gamble. You've turned tech startup marketer. How on earth did that happen? And what did you learn along the way?
Yeah, well, it's certainly been a fun journey ranging from, pay television to car insurance and lending, and now financial services in the app space. But a couple of key lessons, I think, on the personal side and then on the business side. I think on the personal side, go to a business where marketing is a key driver of growth to that business. And I've tried to sort of role model my career as I transitioned from CPG into tech businesses that were driven by marketing, right? And there's a lot of tech businesses that will grow sort of organically on their own and not necessarily leverage the skill base that a marketer has. So I think that's sort of an important lesson as people are navigating their careers. And then I think the second thing is find a values match, in the organization that you're going to, and make sure that that's really strong. So those are two personal important lessons for me. And then I think my path has been all about building skills. And I knew as a CPG marketer, there was this whole thing called direct-to-consumer marketing that I didn't understand. There's this whole thing called performance marketing that I didn't have experience with. And so when I left P&G and I went to Dish Network, it was about understanding direct-to-consumer and subscription marketing. And then when I went to Metro Mile and helped scale a couple of startups, from smaller to bigger, it was really about having that experience, sort of full cycle with a consumer, owning that relationship and building that from a small scale to a big scale.
And speaking of scale and growth, you're in your element in fintech, I believe, because we were talking about it, bringing you in here. Fintech has exploded over the last 2 years. Obvious reasons for that. What's that growth looked like at Acorns?
Yeah, I mean, fintech has been exploding for years, I think now, right? You had sort of this generation one, which was sort of the early web movers, right? You had the Ally banks and the lending clubs and many others that really just brought some of the different services that were available purely online. And now we're sort of in this, I think, generation 2 or 3, depending on who you talk to or how you look at it, where it's really this mobile first world. And mobile first banking, digital banking and investment platforms that are B2B, B2C, and that have been seeing just tremendous growth. And it's really fish where the fish are, right? Consumers are on their mobile devices, more than ever, certainly through the COVID time period. And now we're putting the services in the palm of their hands, where they can engage every single day and have a much better experience than having to leave their home and go to a physical institution.
You mentioned COVID. Now, that was certainly a driver, and I've read a lot and seen a lot of the research around how that impacted fintech apps. For one thing, we looked at them more as part of our daily routine, part of our lifeline. If you're an investor, this was where you did it. This is where you lived. People are gravitating to their fintech apps. Absolutely. How do you keep your users engaged and loyal, or your members rather?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts first and foremost with providing a simple, accessible, consumer-friendly, platform or experience. And so the reality is, what are the core differences going to be? It's going to be the experience that we offer consumers and the brand that we build around that experience. And so for us at Acorns, that's been a cornerstone from day one, is building an amazing brand and building an amazing product experience for consumers that leads to really best-in-class retention at Acorns. So, we believe it's kind of built around those two things. And fundamentally, like, if the product doesn't work and isn't great, like, you're not going to get the growth, the talk value, right, and the sharing and the referral, that are core to driving these businesses.
I had to think about the movie Office Space when I checked out your website. You have this very cool feature that lets people invest without thinking too much about it, rounding up a little bit here and there. In Office Space, they have this scheme where they're rounding up and depositing that into an account. Was that part of the inspiration there, or was it totally different?
Yeah, what a funny movie. The inspiration was different. At Acorns, we're definitely about saving and investing for the long term. And the inspiration was really a digital piggy bank, right? When those of us here grew up, right, when you got change from a purchase, you put it in a piggy bank, and it sat there, and eventually, maybe you had the opportunity to do something with it for school or something else. And Acorns is really born out of that, right? Whether you think about rounding up your spare change on a transaction that took place on a debit card, and not just putting it in a piggy bank, but putting it in the stock market and having the opportunity to, grow with the market over time. So that was really the origins of the Acorns app.
I love that. I absolutely love that. You're spending $23.37 on something, you add up, and there you go, $24, $25. The extra just goes into your account to invest, and over time, who knows what that'll build into. Great.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, the just each transaction putting 50 cents, 25 cents, and if it ends up being $5 a week, it can really add up over time. And the app also has a series of other saving and investing products beyond the core feature of roundups, where you can save for retirement with our later account. You can save for your kids through our early account. And then we have a full suite of digital banking and checking experience as well.
I've been checking that out. There's a little bit of gamification going on in there, badges, some cool stuff, a little bit of a feel for that. I think it's saving for your retirement. But overall, the habit, the attitudes towards micro investing, that's also a learning curve. You're a brand, you're a major brand, but you still need to educate users around this, how to do what they're doing on a finance app. And you're also very focused on your goal, which is to make it possible for every American to be an investor, which is very ambitious as well. How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been built for the masses. And if you think about the vast majority of people coming to our platform have never invested before. Our biggest challenge or biggest hurdle with consumers is, quite frankly, inertia, right? It's taking that first step. It's saying, I'm gonna start saving, I'm gonna invest in the market, view a series of funds. And so, our advertising or our marketing is about education and nurturing a consumer to believe that they can do that, right? And be that empowering first step for them, really setting up a financial future for themselves or their family. So it really is about, being a part of the inspiration, but then ease of use.
So it's a positive outcome. It needs some reinforcement, however. And your CEO, Noah Kerner, has said that a big step in this direction will be marketing and messaging that, quote, simplifies investing and rewards positive long-term behaviors. I'd like to understand that a little bit more. And in that, the role of personalization in driving these positive results and basically influencing investor behavior for the better.
Yeah. Yeah, I take this back to thinking about education as as a young kid going through school, or playing team sports, where you had a teacher that would nurture you along and help you along the way and educate you and coach you on the right way to do something and give you positive reinforcement, right? When you did something great. Um, and same thing with coaches in sports, right? Helping guide you in the right direction, teach you what was right, and course correct at times, and or really nurture and give you that like feeling of wow, I did something amazing, right? And so we've learned for consumers over time, there are definitely these milestones, in their journey of saving and investing, where if we can reinforce the behavior that they're demonstrating, right? It gives them this feeling of we talk about dopamine internally, right? It's like, wow, like, and we know when they get to certain balances, right, retention rates continue to improve. Now we have phenomenal retention overall, but the way we begin to improve sort of the customer's experience is just reinforcing those positive behaviors, right? Personalizing that, making sure we touch them when they have those behaviors, right? Or get to those hurdles and reinforce those things, and then continue to educate so that they demonstrate those behaviors over time and across more products. And that's one of the great things about having a subscription is you get a full suite of tools for a really, really low cost, and the value we're providing consumers is just tremendous.
I absolutely love that because that's personalization that isn't for the sake of personalization. It's in response to what somebody has done. They've achieved something, you respond to that and perhaps open more doors for them. That makes a ton of sense. You just mentioned that you have plans that are paid and they're not expensive, but they are paid. Not every fintech app does that. Do you have that for a reason? Does that change customer perception of the service? Does that change engagement with the service or behavior?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a couple of things to that. Typically, if it's a free service, you're actually the product yourself,
Yes.
and so you are being monetized in other ways, and that's very common in the fintech space, amongst others that you're very familiar with. So, it is our belief in simple, transparent pricing, where you know exactly what you get, and how our business is monetizing the consumer over time, that transparency will win in the long run. And we believe we can provide tremendous value for consumers. And quite frankly, for us to stand up this business and build this business and provide, amazing services to consumers, like there has to be some value exchange, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we continue to see that our consumers are getting tremendous value in it, overall as they adopt multiple products. And we believe that simple, transparent pricing is the key to the future, where other less transparent models, quite frankly, are going to be challenged in the long run.
That makes a lot of sense. Is that connected with your segmentation strategy?
Certainly, segmentation is a cornerstone to us driving personalization for consumers. It's certainly a cornerstone to how we think about building out our products and services and suite of tools for consumers, whether it's part of a bundle or an a la carte option, or different ways to think about our service evolving over time. And we've done, certainly the foundational segmentation work to enable preparing a better pipeline for consumers over time.
Because we've spoken with so many marketers who see pricing as part of the segmentation strategy, John. I'm wondering to what extent that also plays a role here, because it does not just only ensure that we're committed to using the app and we're part of a certain path that follows a personalization or segmentation approach and tactic, but it also allows you to decide how you're going to engage with users and set a certain price, set an expectation. Is that playing a role here in the formula for segmentation?
We've let sort of the segmentation be led by the consumer, and what we've learned about the consumer over time, and through our customer journey work. Pricing has come along for the journey with that. So our focus is really about providing a great value to consumers and a suite of tools that are simple and easy to understand. So, and a lot of things fall out of that segmentation, right? From creative and messaging strategies to pricing over time.
Okay. You've talked about retention. You've said it's phenomenal. I would love to have a ballpark on that. But if I can't have that, what role does retention play in your marketing? For example, there are some CMOs who think of it from the get-go, that the moment they acquire, they're thinking about how to keep them. Again, what is your thought about where retention fits in your marketing strategy?
Yeah, we've shared our retention is nearly 99% over time, so it's really
Okay.
phenomenal as an organization.
Doesn't get much better than that, does it, James?
No, where's the room for improvement?
Yeah.
Your CEO is going to come to you and say, "Hey, you haven't improved retention. What's going on?"
Yeah. Well, one of the things you brought up earlier, right, is obviously the cost to acquire customers in the space is something that every marketer is thinking about on a daily basis, and the leaky bucket, is also something that every marketer needs to be thinking about. And so certainly it has been a core priority of this business from day one to acquire and retain customers, and create that long lasting relationship with them, because you're saving and investing for the long term, right? We can't deliver on our mission of helping people save and invest if we don't have that long-term relationship. So it's been a part of sort of day one from the business, and certainly from a unit economics, every marketer is focused on like, okay, if it costs me X to acquire them, but they all walk out the next day, I certainly can't deliver on the mission, as well as the financial expectations that we have.
You've talked already about messaging people. You've talked about, hey, they hit a certain target or they hit a certain threshold, and then you reward them or you let them know about that and give them a moment to experience that win. Talk a little bit about your in-app experiences and where notifications fit. What's the best time and place to use them in your experience?
Yeah, I think we're continuing to evolve there. I think like any good organization, we're doing lots and lots of testing to understand, what's the best way to help consumers adopt, healthy habits overall. So you have your traditional suite of CRM tools ranging from email to in-app notifications to push notifications to text messaging, right, to other alert cards inside of them to alert senders, right? Wow, holy cow. And we've got to orchestrate, based on our segmentation, a series of sort of nurturing engagements for consumers. And it's quite interesting, right? And as you can imagine from your understanding of the gaming world, like people behave very differently, but over time you can group some of them into some different strategies where some people prefer text messaging versus in-app messaging versus. And so we're continuing to evolve and increase level of personalization so that we can serve people how they want to be served, right? Some people are annoyed by text, some people are annoyed by push, right? So how can we get the response from them, either passively, like they don't respond, right, or actively? How do we allow you to set up preferences, right, that would allow us to figure out the best way to communicate with you? So
I love that you're intentional with that, because people do respond differently based on where you talk to them, and they do want it differently as well, right? Some are checking their email religiously. For others, you will disappear into that bottomless sea. I'm talking about myself here, Peggy. But for others, like, I'll check every single text message I get. On the other hand, if I get a text message from a company and I think this is really lame, that might be a block as well. So it's a real dance to figure out where the right place is. In-app often works really, really well, but you've got to play that dance pretty carefully.
Yeah. And education is a core component, of what we're trying to deliver to consumers. How do we do that in a way, that doesn't interfere with their life, that intercepts them when they're receptive at the right time, and we can help them along their financial journey. So it's no easy task, right? But that's why we're all here.
So there are multiple journeys, multiple ways to connect with those consumers, depending on what their preference is. As you said, channel preference is just one of them. But of course, you have to know when you're hitting the mark and when you're not. And that's where metrics comes in. Now, that's a very polarizing topic, right? Everyone has their favorite. Some people say, this one works for me. It's all about LTV. It's all about whatever. What metrics do you measure, or what do you use to measure customer engagement or retention? What are you looking at? Is it metrics, events? What can you share?
NPS is like a very high level indicator, but you really need to kind of get under the hood there. Certainly, ratings and reviews in our space are incredibly important, right? And it's not unique to fintech, right? So it's critical that we are looking at and evaluating ratings and reviews on a regular basis and make sure we're modifying our roadmap accordingly based on what we're learning from that. And then you have your core growth metrics that are a part of every marketer's life, right? Are we growing revenue? Are we growing average revenue per user? Right? Those types of metrics. And fortunately, one of the reasons I love sort of being in technology and love being in the sort of world where you get real-time feedback is I wake up every morning and I know how I did the day before, right? And so I get real-time feedback in the morning, whether I like it or not. I know how we did the prior day against LTV, or LTV to CAC ratios, depending on some of those things, or payback, those types of things. So, I think a lot of those are probably similar to what others are experiencing and focusing on. I think I would group it in sort of consumer metrics, right? Like, how am I delighting consumers, right? And then financial metrics, right? And then lastly, my team metrics, right? What's my team health look like? And what are those metrics?
That's a really interesting grouping. And this is not an industry for those who don't like feedback, because there's a lot of feedback in the data you get all the time. Last question, and you were off. What is your top tip for marketers who want to boost customer retention?
I think the one of the most amazing developments over the last decade has been much more granular understanding of a customer journey mapping, right? Especially in a direct-to-consumer business where you can track every touch point. I mean, obviously, Apple and privacy and some other things are evolving here over the last 6 to 12 months, but mapping a customer journey from the first touch of awareness, right, or engagement with a brand for the first time, all the way through the full life cycle, of retention and referral. That is something that over the last 10 years, you've really begun to be able to map and track at a very granular level, right? Every touch inside the app, right? We can watch a consumer's, journey and their growth. So I think that's, number one for boosting customer retention is looking at your customer journey roadmap and then identifying the pain points and then solving them one by one.
James, this has been such a pleasure. It's been so enjoyable. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us on CleverTap Engage. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the time and the interest in Acorns and what we're doing for consumers to help them, walk their journey and learn and grow and save and invest.
And thank you as well, James, because it's very interesting to hear more and more about how consumer and customer education is part of the engagement journey. So that was interesting as well. And of course, for our audience, also interested, if you're watching this in the video, then check out the audio podcast, which is easy to consume on the go. And if you're on the audio version, it's just like with you, James, and the channels. Take what you want. If you're on audio, then look for us on YouTube and chill out and watch this wherever you want. It's all up to you. You're in control.
Absolutely. And this podcast, of course, is about finding the world's best marketers and getting their top tips, right? Prying them out of them. If you fit the bill, ping Peggy or me on Twitter or LinkedIn. We're available. We're out there. Let's get you set up for your own show. Until then, this is John Katsir.
And this is Peggy Ann Saltz for CleverTap Engage.